So, as I said, this webinar is called Boosting Requirements Management Capabilities in Microsoft Word. And today I want to address the topic of managing traceability. Traceability, why and how? Why should one care about traceability in the first place? Now, if we look into reference documentation like the INCOSE reference documentation, like the Needs and Requirements Manual, we are discussing traceability in the sense of that we actually need it to manage, for instance, change control and impact analysis. Because you know, as systems engineer, that when we break down a need and a complex problem, you will have the need of having addressing the traceability, because the different sets of information that they actually belong together. And this traceability can of course be of different types. You want to have traceability between requirements and the different verification artifacts, like the verification methods and the verification results. And also you want to be able to break down, as I said, the requirements into smaller and smaller pieces, from system to subsystem to component and so on and so forth. So you want to establish this linkage, these traces between layers of requirements. And these abstraction levels, of course, can be very deep. So the more complex system you are working on, the more complex the different abstraction levels also will be. And these kind of dependencies are, of course, something which is very important for you to keep track on, because if something changes, you want to be able to manage the analysis of checking what might that change do for me, or what new problems will arise if I don't have that possibility to check that. So we can talk about traceability in many different directions. So there are different types, as I said, of traceability. And the backward type of traceability is to be able to always be able to validate that you are doing the right move, that the requirement has a mother, it has a source. And if you're changing a requirement, you want to check with the source, is this still valid? Or do I have to do something, or even do I have to remove the trace because there's no logic between the traceability anymore? And the forward traceability is of the kind, is this requirement going to be used in the next iteration or in this version of the system? And also the forward traceability takes care of the interest of me being able to check that through test and verification and validation that the requirement is fulfilled. And then, of course, when I do these different layers of abstraction, I get these derived requirements from a high level to a lower level of requirements, and I want to keep track on that for sure. So there's many directions, there's a depth, and there's layering functions when it comes to traceability. So to sum this theory part up a bit, without proper traceability for a requirements engineer, it's hardly feasible at all to do, for instance, be able to prove that a certain requirement is satisfied. How will you be able to do that if you have no idea how the requirements are linked together and how it's linked to the result of the implementation? You can't show that it's implemented, you have to guess. And another important aspect when it comes to safety critical system is that you have to be able to show that your different sets of requirements are fulfilling the applicable laws, the different contracts you have in place, or the different standards you are referring to. And if you manage that, or if you don't manage it, I should say, it's also quite impossible to look for missing work products, because at the end of the day, if you don't see this layered information, this web of information which is vertically connected, it's hard to say, am I complete? Is this consistent? So traceability is of great importance when it comes to this kind of information quality. And the last but not least, any change in any direction or at any level, what will that impact? What will the impact of that change be? If you don't have traces, you have a very hard time, if possible at all, to check the effect of any proposed change. So traceability is key for us. So in traditional requirements management tools, RM tools, like the Siemens Polarion, in the previous webinar I've been referring to IBM Doors, and there are plenty of different tools, but let's just, for this case, focus on Siemens. They take care of the traceability within its own environment in a very sophisticated and nice way. And you can create different work items, and you can trace them all together, and you can export them in traceability matrices to check the traceability and how it looks, and if you have clustered traces, and if you want to, you can do a lot of nice things. Of course, when you're working with a database and you are tracing things together, sometimes you need to develop quite complex queries to get the information you want. But at the end of the day, these tools are very good at managing traceability. And if you're working with Microsoft Word, then, if you're writing your requirements in specification in Word, is it possible to manage traceability in the first place? Well, there's two major problems with working with Word. The first is that you don't have an automatic and stable numbering system. The requirements ID is very much created by hand, and it's not controlled. And that's key when you want to, maintain the traceability and keeping track on things. And also, there is no traceability model, how you're going to work with your traceability. So it's really up to the author of the requirements of the specification to define if you want to work with cross-reference to other documents like hyperlinks. Of course, you can do that. It's tedious, it's time-consuming, and you could absolutely discuss the value of this, because these links are absolutely super dead. They will not react on anything. Any change on either side of the trace will not be detected. So it's just a reference link, and you can click on it and you can get to the other document and to the traced information, but you have no idea if it's changed or not. So it's actually quite useless. So our approach to traceability then. Well, let's now focus on how we manage traceability within Microsoft Word. We have a great traceability capability within SES when you want to add traceability to many different types of information, like documents, databases, testing tools of different kinds, but this is not the focus for this presentation. It's how we manage Microsoft Word. And these defects, which I'm talking about here, is taken care of. As you have seen in previous webinars, we are parsing the information from the document, and either we are parsing the information with a set requirements ID from the document, or we create it ourselves. Basically, we are doing that anyway, but you can choose what to show. So we have a super strict reference model in SES, which makes it impossible to lose track on the work product you have been parsing and defining. So that's stable enough, so that enables the traceability. So the traceability capability within Word, which is the one I'm going to show you soon, will enable the possibility for you to trace information elements or work products in a normal way. So if you're used to a requirements management system or tool, you will see that they are quite similar. And this enables the word traceability capability to actually react on different changes in both the source and target. And this includes any type of change, not only the requirements text, but also the different attributes you have defined in the background. And you saw some previous short webinar on attribute management. So everything connected to the requirement, including the attributes, will trigger the change. It will also detect if you have deleted something, of course. So it's vital that it's not only looking at the things which is in front of you, but also the things that has been removed. And you have seen a short webinar on how we manage change and manage baselines. And this is also something which is worked into the traceability functions here. And then, of course, we will, through the natural language processing and the knowledge management ontology we have in the background, we can add a lot of fancy things to manage the search for different traces through semantics. And I will not go through that today, but I will provide a link to a longer webinar on exactly that at the end of this presentation. So this is a brief presentation on how it looks when you open Microsoft Word. Of course, you have your document, you have your parsed information, and up to the right, you have the traceability management capability. And if you press that, you will open up the different trace projects and trace modules that you have been defining. And I will show you that in a short while. So you can define trace projects, as I said, and you can define trace modules within that trace project to manage different types of traces. You can perform traceability manually, which I will be showing you, or automatically through the natural language processing capabilities we have. But as I said before, this is a short webinar, and I will leave you without having more knowledge about that. So for that, you have to look into another webinar. And of course, you can perform this impact analysis to check if something has changed on either side of the trace, the source or the target. And you can, of course, do it before or after you are performing the change. Now I will show you doing the change just to show you that something is changed, and then we check the trace. But you can, of course, do it the other way around to check how the traceability goes and decide if you want to perform the change or not beforehand. And of course, you can prepare different traceability reports of different kinds, like the traceability matrix. So you will see in a brief short time that I will be absolutely cluttering the display with a lot of the information, because now we have to work on 3 different sources of information: the trace that you will see in the middle, and the source information, which is one Word document, and the target document, which is also a document, as I said. So I do recommend that you have at least 2 screens. In this picture, you see 3 screens connected, so you can split the information up and see everything in a better way. But for this presentation, you will only see it on 1 screen. So now for the demonstration. What I will do in this short video is that I will have a document open. I will open another one so we can actually create traces between the source and the target. I will open the traceability management capability within Word, and we will look into the different traces. And I will perform some changes, and you will see what happens. So let's start. This is the quite famous James Webb Space Telescope project document by now. If you've been following these webinars, this is not the first time you see it. It's already connected, and I've been parsing the information. I've been hiding the visual ID from the document itself. I'm only interested in the requirements text for now, just to save some space. And here we have the connection management capability, and you see that I have a lot of different connections. We will only focus on managing traceability between Word documents, but of course you can manage traceability between everything you have been connecting to. But for this presentation, I will only connect to Word. So now we have 2 documents connected. I will close the connection management window in the middle, otherwise we will not see anything. I still have the document open if I want to work on that, but again, then you would need some more space on this display. I'm putting the trace management capability in the middle, so you will see it. So basically what you see now is that we have the source to the left and the target to the right. And I've been creating a traceability project called System Spec Traces and a module called Standard Fulfillment. So now I'm creating and looking into the different traces that has been created, just to show how the information is linked. So you could for sure look for traces by pattern matching, semantic search, and the different property allocation algorithms. But I will not go into that today. I will only show you how it looks when you actually manually create trace and when these traces are changed. So here are the two parsed documents with the different requirements in them. So let's just prepare a change. I want to connect the source with that target, and I press trace element, and it's not harder than that. Now you have created a trace between these 2 types. And if I navigate to the traces, I will also see the information which is traced on both the target and the source side. So let's perform some trace. Oh, sorry, some change. So I will start to change the target side. I will change a shall to a should. The change is highlighted, and in order for me to be able to look into this, I need to save it first. So I'm saving the change on the target document. So I'm creating a new version of this work product. And of course, you can work also in the Word document itself. You don't have to work within the content window. So now this information is changed. So what happens if I want to look into the traceability of this? So I use the evaluate suspect, and of course, SES will find that I have 1 suspect trace. It detects that something has changed. And of course, it's the one where I prepare the change. So let's open this one up, this trace, and see. You can see on top there that I have indication on the target that has changed on the target side. And if I want to highlight that one, I will see that the information has been changed from version 3 to version 4. And in this version, you will not be able to highlight here the change. You will have to go into the content window, but it will come that you will always be possible to more check the information here as well. So in this case, it was only a shall to a should, so I accept the change in the trace. So the trace is still valid. So let's say that I'm actually changing something on the source side instead. So let's change this requirement. Each technical requirement shall be described in a quantitable terms. Let's change that to subjective, just for the sake of the change. The change is highlighted, and again, you can do it in the document. You don't have to do it within SES if you want. It's still changed. I'm saving it. So let's see what happens if I evaluate this. Oh, now I got an indication that I have 2 suspect links. And that's because this requirement on the source side is actually traced to 2 requirements on the target side. So of course I then get 2 traces which are suspect. So now it's more tricky, so I could actually analyze it from the traceability matrix view, or I can, in a graphical way, show how these information elements are connected. In this case, it's the requirement on the target side, MR195 and 190, which has been changed. And if I want to email this to somebody to discuss it, or I want to save it to a document or something, I can export this picture. I can also do it from within to export the traceability matrix if I want it, or to a plain Excel document. So let's now navigate to this. So let's open up these traces and see what's wrong with them, or what should I do with them. Now it's a source side, and it has been changed to quantifiable to subjective, and the target is this requirement: should system from anomalies. Okay, that's still valid. Let's take a look on the other side, on the other trace. It's the same change, so that of course shouldn't be different, but the target is another requirement, and this is actually not valid anymore. I have to do some action here to solve this, but the traceability trace is not valid. So I'm removing that trace just so you can see that traces can also be removed. And when I'm done, I can close the traceability management window, and I can close the target document if I want it as well. So I'm just back into the source document and the content view. So that was basically what I wanted to show in this brief presentation. And as I said before, now I did changes in the requirement text, but you can perform changes also on all attached attributes as well. So regardless of what you are changing, we will be able to track that and see that. So, and if you want to have more information on the traceability capability, there is a longer video presenting just the trace capability, also with the more natural language based capability of finding suspect traces, and also showing how you could trace to different sources of information, like model elements or test cases, or different types of information, not only Microsoft Word. And this presentation is available on YouTube, so please watch that. And now it's time for some questions and answers. Cecilia, is there any questions?
Yes, we have a question here. You said that it's not good to trace between 2 requirements in the same document. Why?
Well, it's basically systems engineering that you don't want to create super complex documents covering all the levels of requirements in one source. So I would absolutely, in that case, if I deliberately create a system and a subsystem specification, then of course I don't need to trace within the same document. I trace between documents instead. So it's just to make it more sound and more robust.
Okay. Let's take another question. Can you have more than one traceability module open at the same time?
That's a very good question. You can't have them open at the same time. You are looking at specific traces within the different trace modules, but you can have different trace modules. For instance, you are first looking at traces between the source and the target, between different requirements. Then you are looking into a trace module which includes traces of a verification type between requirements and verification results, for instance. And then you are doing that separately. So you're probably doing that not at the same time. So you will not have them open at the same time.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, good questions. And again, this is a series of webinars, and the next one will be covering if you want to carry away your requirements, in this case a document. How will you manage this? And this presentation will be held on May 11 or May 9th. So there's actually a short gap now in this series. So in the meantime, I hope that you are interested in acquisition. There will be a longer presentation or webinar on how you manage data in an acquisition context while you are working with Microsoft Word, I should add. This is held on April 25 or April 27. So please join us for that. And this is my contact details if you want to contact me later. And don't forget that we have a homepage where you can find under resources all of these webinars and a lot of other webinars as well. And you can also find our tools themselves there, of course. And you can find us on our YouTube channel, where there are also a lot of information like different webinars and presentations. So thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you back here soon again. Bye-bye.